Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all my armed Ojama XYZ Yugioh deck profile for April 2020. A lot of you have been requesting that I do an update to the armed Ojama XYZ deck, which is probably one of the craziest decks we've ever seen, come into the Yu-Gi-Oh format, being a deck that focuses on all of Chaz Princeton's three main types of cards he used in his deck throughout the series, including Ojamas, Armed Dragons, and the V to Z archetype using XYZ Dragon Cannon, and all the other different monsters for that lineup to get out V to Z XYZ Dragon Cannon, and then combine the two together into the Armed Dragon Catapult, which is probably one of the biggest boss monsters and probably one of the most difficult ones we've ever seen, be able to get out in the game. But without further ado, I'm really happy with the updated results for the deck, so let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the monsters, the main focus for the setup for all of your different plays are the Ojama monsters, which I'm running two of each of the original Ojama trio, including two Ojama yellow, green, and black. I didn't run full max of these cards. They're used mostly for an engine in this deck. You don't really use them for any other play setup other than that. If you get them out, they can be good monster resources for some other extra deck plays, but you use them basically for some of the other spells in the deck, including Ojama Match, Ojama Simulation, and also Ojama Pajama, all working very, very well together to set up your main go-to boss monsters, which in the end are your Armed Dragon level 7, and then your extra deck monster, which is V to Z Dragon Catapult Cannon. So once you get those two out, then you go for your main fusion monster, which is your Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon. With this, during the turn, you special summon the above cards by banishing them from your field. So having all of these Ojama cards is just like I said for the setup, because then those other spell cards can help to set up the other monsters we need to summon out the big boss monsters onto the field for those plays. I really do like this number, so you always end up opening them up, at least a couple in your hand to use, and then we have other spells that can easily search them out also, along with some of the other monsters, including more of the Ojama lineup, which are three Ojama Blue. This card, when it's destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can add two Ojama cards from your deck to your hand. So we have plenty of other Ojama cards, including Ojama Match, and then also all the other different Ojama monsters also. So having the search power with blue is very, very vital. That's why I decided to make it my 3 of in the deck for the Ojama monsters. Being able to have all the search options, and other cards like Oja Magic, which we run in the deck, are searchable for these Ojama monsters also. But I definitely do feel 3 blue helps for the overall search power you have in the deck. And then I just run the 1 Ojama red. The Ojama spam playstyle isn't really as needed in this deck, but I still like having it as that option that you can go for in the deck in total. Being able to use Ojama red to special summon out a bunch of Ojama monsters onto the field, and then go for the Link summon, which can then set them up in the graveyard for you to use with Ojama Simulation, your spell card that can help get out all the other different monsters we need for the bigger plays. And then also for the V2Z play style of the deck, I'm also running 1 of each of all the Union monsters for the lineup. So 1 Z Metal Tank, 1 Y Dragon Head, 1 X Head Cannon, 1 W Wing Catapult, and 1 V Tiger Jet. I really feel 1 is all you need of these cards in the deck, since you can set them up with your Ojama Simulation spell card, which we'll get to when we go over the spells in the deck. They really play no other point in the deck aside from the fact that V Tiger Jet gets out VW Tiger Catapult, and then X through Z gets out XYZ Dragon Cannon, and then having the both of them on the field goes for the boss monster V to Z Dragon Catapult Cannon. And what's great about Master Rule now is that we don't have to rely on Link monsters anymore to set up the extra deck plays. You can easily just, fusion summon these cards out with the added style for the Union monsters. So if you just get them out, you can go for the fusion there and there. You don't have to have the Link monster set up to have the 2 on the field anymore, making it, I wouldn't say it's super, super easy now, because it's still a very difficult play to do in the deck as a total, but you don't have to go for those extra monsters now to summon those monsters out onto the field for you to use by getting your 2 Link arrows to have the 2 fusion monsters. You can just rely solely on the main monster zones now with your fusion monsters, and not have to use the Link monsters to point arrows to those zones to get them out. And then for the Armed Dragon monsters, I'm running 2 Armed Dragon level 5. You can search this card out with Ojama and then, get the additional normal summon to summon it out onto the field for you to use. So this card, and then is your main setup for your Armed Dragon level 7, which you can either use your level up to get that card out, or you can use Armed Dragon level 5's effect. During the end phase of this card, destroy a monster by battle this turn. You can send this card from your graveyard to special summon 1 Armed Dragon level 7 from your hand or deck, which I run the one of as well, being another searchable card with Ojama. If you at least have the other card set up in your hand to use, you can then go for the easy special summon of this card either through the level up option or just through searching it out and using the proper method for your Armed Dragon level 5. But I feel these numbers are all you need in the deck for that ratio. You don't need Armed Dragon level 3. It really doesn't help for any point in the deck. If anything, it's just an extra step to get this card out when you can easily just go for level 5 and then go for level 7. And Armed Dragon level 10 isn't needed for the summon since our main boss monster just needs V through Z Dragon Catapult Cannon and Armed Dragon level 7 to make it. So these are the perfect numbers for it. I just have the additional Armed Dragon level 5 just so we have that option because you do need it. So if your opponent ruins the summon in any way, you at least have a second option backup to go for in the deck also. And then to finish off the monsters, just running the 3 Ash Blossom as the hand trap of choice in the deck, along with all the other engine. You just want some sort of method to stop your opponent's, play setup, because if you can at least, put a halt to the play they were going and then you go second, you at least have some more, means to go up against your opponent by stopping their main play to go for. And that is it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. I run 3 Ojama. You send 1 Ojama card from your hand or face it from your field to the graveyard to add to your hand 1 Ojama monster with a different name, and then 1 Armed Dragon monster from your deck and or graveyard. Then immediately after this effect resolves, you can normal summon 1 of those monsters. During the main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 3 of your banished Ojama monsters to shuffle them into the deck and draw 1 card. So the banish will come into play with Ojama Simulation for the banish search that card does, but Ojama, you can send any of your different Ojama cards and then have the 2 adds to your hand. Most of the time I like to add Ojama Blue because Blue has additional search options with this card, and then obviously going for the Armed Dragon level 5 with the second search play, being able to set up that card on the field also. But 3 of this card definitely is needed for that search option. It's also a quick play, so you can easily make use of it during the standby phase of the turn also, so very, very easy to remember that for the search it can do. And I also run the 3 Ojama Simulation. With this, you reveal 1 Light Machine Fusion monster from your extra deck and banish any number of Ojama monsters from your hand face up on the field and or graveyard to special summon fusion materials with different names whose names are specifically listed on the card you revealed from your hand, deck, and or graveyard equal to the number of monsters banished to activate this effect. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 3 of your banished Ojama monsters, shuffle them into the deck, and draw 1 card. So this is your go-to card to get the V through Z monsters on the field, and since it can be from the hand, deck, or graveyard, it's why I only like to run the one-ofs of the cards in the deck, since Ojama Simulation relies on the Ojama monsters as your main go-to setup. So as long as you have those searched and ready to go, Ojama Blue, Ojama Magic, you name it, that search definitely comes in handy for Ojama Simulation, being able to get those monsters out on the field quite easily as well. Just going for the search for your play, usually you'll want to go for the V through Z, or going for XYZ or your VW, gain those 2 special summon monsters out on the field, and then using the banish effect of, let's say, Ojama or Ojama Pajama to recycle the Ojama monsters back into the deck for you to research and then also get that draw power as well. And we spoke of the card more than enough, but I also run the 3 Ojama. I like to run this because once you get your 3 Ojama monsters in your hand, you have the Ojama to go for as well, being able to then discard the Ojama, giving you 3 Ojama monsters, adding your, basically your Armed Dragon and your other Ojama monster to your hand to use, and then having the search of the additional Ojama for yellow, green, and black. It's why I also like to go for Ojama Blue for the search off of that, because then you would gain the additional mandatory search of Ojama to your hand to use also. And with the Armed Dragon support, I'm running the 2 Level Up. This card is just your basic go-to way to get Armed Dragon level 7 out. You send one face-up level monster you control to the graveyard to special summon one monster from your hand or deck that is listed on that sent monster's text, ignoring the summoning conditions. So just a quicker way, since it has to be at the end of the turn for Armed Dragon level 5, to summon out your Armed Dragon level 7. So as long as you have that play to go for, you'll be able to set up the special summon search. This is definitely a play that relies having these specific cards on the field to go for your main boss monster, but that also is what makes the deck a lot of fun, to at least try and see if you can get that summon out. And then I also run 3 Hand Destruction. This one helps for the overall setup of your cards in the graveyard, so you can have the additional Ojama monsters on the field to use. So with this, basically each player sends 2 cards from their hand to the graveyard, then each player draws 2 cards. So with Ojama Simulation, you have to banish the Ojama monsters from your hand face up on the field and or graveyard. So if you can draw into more important cards with Hand Destruction and then ditch off some Ojama monsters you may have in your hand, this card just helps for that overall play. And you can even send Ojama Magic with this card, giving you more additional ways to search out other cards after the draw too. Also, it's just my go-to card for sure for that setup. It's very, very useful for the overall draw. The only thing you have to remember is your opponent has to have cards for them to send as well, otherwise this card won't work. And then to finish off the spells, I'm also running 3 Call by the Grave. This one just helps to stop your opponent's hand traps, since you definitely do have a lot of draw and search power in this deck, and special summoning. It basically takes over all the aspects. So you don't want your opponent to disrupt any of those plays with cards like Ash Blossom or Effect Veiler. So relying on Call by the Grave as your go-to spell to stop the plays is very, very useful also. And then for the traps, the only trap I'm running is Ojama Pajama. If an Armed Dragon monster and or a Light Machine monster you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish any number of Ojama cards from your hand, face up on the field, or graveyard instead. You can only use each effect of the following of Ojama Pajama once per turn. During the main phase, you can add 1 Ojama card from your deck to your hand, then discard 1 card. Or if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can special summon as many banished Ojamas as possible. The banished Ojamas help because then you can special summon them back to reuse with your Ojama Simulation, and then be able to special summon out more Union monsters to go for your fusion plays. And the protection of these cards, like let's say you get out your XYZ Dragon Cannon, you want to protect it because then you'll have to use the Ojama Simulation again to summon out your VW Tiger Catapult Cannon, so then you can go for your big boss monster play as well. But Ojama Pajama just comes in handy for the protection of those cards, like I said, overall in the deck, and the draw power for your different Ojama cards just helps with the recycles. You can get some of the more important ones into your hand to use, including Ojama Match and Ojama Simulation. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. For the fusion monsters, I'm running 1 VW Tiger Catapult, just for the fact that you need this for your V to Z play. That's why I run the 1 of this card. It doesn't really do much more than that. You just want to make sure, most of the time I go for XYZ Dragon Cannon first, since it's more of a boss monster that can stay on the field, and then make this second, since if I keep this on the field and then have to go for the other one, there's a good chance my opponent will be able to destroy this card than the other fusion monster, which is XYZ Dragon Cannon. I'm running 2 of this card for the fact that if you at least can get this card out, you have the destruction effect that this card can do to target 1 card by destroying it by discarding 1 card you control. Very, very useful. I'm just running the 2 alternate arts just so I can tell which ones I've gone through. Also, by banishing the cards you control from the extra deck as well. So this recycle power definitely does help when you can go into that option as well for all the different cards in the deck. And then your main go-to boss monster is V through Z Dragon Catapult Cannon. Must first be special summoned from your extra deck by banishing the above materials. So you need the VW Tiger Catapult and the XYZ Dragon Cannon to make this card. And it's one of your needed cards to go into your big boss monster, which is Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon. Must first be special summoned from your extra deck during a duel. You special summon both of the above cards by banishing the above cards from your field and or graveyard. You do not use polymerization. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects with the same name as the banished card. And once per turn during your opponent's turn, quick effects, you can banish 1 card from your deck or extra deck to banish all cards your opponent controls. So if you get this card out, I would say that's a victory on its own against your opponent. Just the fact that you worked so hard to summon this card out, and all you have to do is, properly special summon those cards out onto the field and then banish them from the field or graveyard. So as long as you have these cards set up, you can easily get the other cards onto the field later on during the duel and then summon this card out from your extra deck, being the 2 go-to cards, which are your V through Z and your Armed Dragon level 7, and then relying on the Ojama monsters as well we have in the deck. So just having these cards for your setup is very, very important as well, and helps for the overall play in the deck. But you only need one of this card. There's really no way I would say you'd make a second one unless you completely just doubled the amount of cards you ran in the deck also. But so for some of the more generic link support, I'm running 2 Hip Hoshinengen. For the Ojama monsters, you can set them up in the graveyard, get a link monster. You don't need the arrows as much for your fusion plays, but still very, very useful. And also 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, the 1 Cross Sheep for the fusion summons when you do them. It comes in handy, along with the 1 Borreload. And then for the Exceed monsters, 1 Herald of Pure Light. This can help for the recycle power as well for some of your cards for the Ojama searches, along with number 64 Ronin Raccoon Sandayu, and the 1 Abyss Dweller for the level 4 monsters if you open up multiples of the Union cards, and then you just need an Exceed summon play for them as well. But as for most of your go-to plays in the deck, relying on the Oja Simulation, the Oja Match, and the Oja Magic are definitely your go-tos, with your Oja Match being able to discard your Oja Magic, so then you can search out your go-to cards, like I said, which will be your Ojama Blue, and then your Armed Dragon level 5, then relying on the Oja Magic to search out your Ojama Trio, also setting up all these cards in your hand, and then giving you the additional normal summon onto the field of any of the Ojama monsters, whichever one you want, tributing them out for your Armed Dragon level 5, giving you the search power then for the other Ojama monsters, whichever one is in the graveyard, and then relying on the Oja Simulation to reveal any of the monsters in your extra deck to go for, being the fusion plays, banishing the other Ojama monsters, and then being able to get the special summon monsters out onto the field to use. So you definitely have to rely on those Ojama spells for your main setup of the different monsters onto the field. Like I said, it's definitely more than likely, unless you have the perfect hand of all the different cards you can do, maybe a first turn play, but just being able to patiently summon out the monsters you need, because right here we're basically almost to the play, and then go for the summon with all the other ones, recycling your Ojama monsters to give you additional draw power also, until you eventually have your main boss monster out on the field by leveling up both the plays and going for the fusion plays to summon out your Armed Dragon Catapult Dragon Cannon. It's not even a dragon before the cannon part, just Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.